Everyone, how is everyone getting on? We're having some technical issues with my little holder, it snapped. So we're all up close and personal with my me just holding the camera, but that's not a bad thing. So I'm gonna have Cassandra Louise, who is unbelievable. Love the stuff she puts up on Instagram. We're gonna be talking about something that she developed, which is called the Female Athlete Development Program. Perfect. She is here. Let's get her in. Hopefully she'll be with us now in 2 seconds. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Let me just get my volume. There we go. I can hear you a bit better now. Yes, I'm good. I'm really good. Thank you. Yeah, very happy it's Friday afternoon here and I finished work for the week.
Yeah, I'm taking up your Friday evening. I know it's good. No, thanks so much for coming on. I was just saying there before you joined, you might have seen it, but had some technical difficulties with my little phone holder, so I'm holding it in my hand. So if there's wobbling at all, I apologise.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, you think after like what a year and a half of doing this that we'd be able to like deal with any of our technical issues, but they just
I know.
keep on popping up, don't
It
they?
just keeps happening. Yeah, and you're like, oh, great, cool. Two minutes before you start, you're like, oh, fab, great.
Always, always.
But yeah, but look, thanks so much for coming on, for having the chats. Obviously, we've met on Instagram, which I'll get you to kind of tell everyone about in a little bit. But do you kind of want to introduce yourself, tell people what you're about, what you do, kind of who you are?
Okay, so hi, I'm Cassandra, and I am a PE teacher. I've been a PE teacher for many years now, and I've always considered myself an athlete. And really, the whole cycle tracking and understanding female physiology, my journey with that only began about, I'd say maybe 18 months, maybe 2 years ago. I went on a strength and conditioning conference, and one of the sessions that was offered was on how to train like a girl. I think was the name of the conference, and I kind of went along thinking, oh, you know, I already know quite a lot about this. I've been a PE teacher for so
Mm,
many years. I'm a female myself, and then yeah, this is where I first started understanding about how your fluctuating hormone levels can actually be used as a positive training tool rather than something that's going to hold you back and inhibit you in your
mm,
training. And yeah, whenever I speak about this, it always puts a big like smile on my face because I'm like, it was literally like a like mind blown
yeah.
moment. All the things that I'd experienced in my training previously, like I got into endurance running when I was in my early 30s, and all those times when I was finding it hard when I was training versus other times when I find it really easy. It was like you kind of went back in your head and was like, that all just makes sense. And you're like, it wasn't me. It wasn't that I hadn't, you know, fueled properly, or perhaps I hadn't fueled properly, but it, you know, it
Mm,
wasn't only my fault. So that's what really started the journey. And then they recommended watching the Dr. Stacey Sims TED Talk. So
yeah.
I watched that, and then, you know, bought the book. Just kind of like fell into a rabbit hole and read lots of journals that she had anything to do with. Went on her course, did her online Women Are Not Small Men course, and then that's when I really kind of like started to solidify my understanding of female physiology. And yeah, it's just been a journey of education since then. I've been really lucky that I work in an environment where I'm able to, you know, share my understanding and my passion for it. And there's been
Mm.
a good uptake, and people are like, yeah, like this is interesting and it's new and it's something that's really going to benefit those of us with female physiology.
Yeah, brilliant. No, it's cool. Like my, I guess, journey would be very similar, and I did the Dr. Stacey Sims course as well. Was it January 2 years ago? So it's so weird. I would say that every talk we're trying to remember back 2 years, and you're like, what
Yeah,
year is it? And when? Because like last year was just a bit of a mad one. But yeah, it's really
does it
good.
count?
Like it's yeah, exactly. But it's a great because it's like an update to her book, and it goes into way more detail and everything. So it's actually I found that really useful to try and get into like the science behind stuff, when you kind of want to understand the why a little bit more. Um, but yeah, and kind of like what like for you, what was like the biggest learning for yourself? Like I know we'll talk about the kids and everything now in a little bit, but for yourself and your own training, kind of what was the biggest learning there?
I think really it was the tailoring your training and knowing when to pull back. Like
Mm.
I had already started to understand a little bit about nutrition. I a very good friend of mine, Kat, who actually was on the female athlete
Yeah.
conference as well as a nutritionist, and a couple of years ago, I started to have a few like hormonal issues and had some ovarian cysts, and spoke to her about it, and she was like, you know, first thing, eat breakfast, make sure you've eaten before you train. And it was like, oh,
Mm.
against everything that we're told, like train fasted and, you know, do
Yeah.
intermittent fasting and, you know, low carb diet and ketogenic. Like I'd done all of it. And,
Yeah.
you know, and it was starting to have an effect on my, you know, on my hormones. So I'd already started to understand a little bit about the fact that I needed to like train with the proper nutrients in my body. But it's still, it's really hard, even though you know it, like you have somebody who you trust and respect is telling you this information, you still, we have like, for every one person who's telling you this is the right way to do it, you've got like social media and just all this other information telling you that
Mm.
don't do it, you're going to end up getting a stronger, lean body. So I kind of started my journey there. But really, the thing that I have got the most benefit out is pushing hard the first couple of weeks of my cycle, like 2 to 3 weeks. I like really load up my strength training, and then I know
Mm.
that before I'm about to come on my period, I know that I can pull back, and it's taken me, I'd say, a good 18 months. I think it's the last 6 months I've really started to enjoy that week before my period, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it's deload week, and I say that
Yeah.
going like my CrossFit gym, the guy that my trainer there, I'm like, yeah, it's deload week. And so I'm like, yes, I know that I can like pull back, work on more skills work, you
Mm.
know, eat more food and just kind of like be and like look after myself and be kinder to myself.
Mm.
And yeah, and then once my period starts, I'm like, all right, sweet, now it's time to get back to it. And yeah, it's just really made the whole like process, I guess, of my menstrual cycle feel a lot more of an enjoyable experience rather than like a hindrance as it was in the
Yeah.
past.
Absolutely. And like, obviously as your role as a PE teacher, you're kind of working with young female athletes, and like how have they responded to that, or how have you been bringing that into kind of what you do in your day-to-day job?
Yeah, so when I first started trying to talk about it with the athletes, it was around the time like when you and I connected, the first round of lockdown. So I was back in the UK, and
Mm.
um, I had started doing a little bit of strength training with my track and field team before we went on lockdown. So I started kind of like making our girls aware that we need to make sure we're doing strength training, but I just focused on that. And I think because I was still battling with the kind of stigma around talking about menstrual cycles, and
Yeah.
I didn't want them to be like, oh, like back off, miss, we don't want to talk about periods with you. So I was a little
Yeah.
bit nervous about it initially. And then I think just having that time when I was like had more time basically because we were just stuck in our house for like months on end, and I just was like, right, okay, this is an opportunity to get this education out there. But I went in like everything all in one go. I did like I think it was like an hour-long online session with them, and it was like everything I'd learned I tried to fit in 1 hour and gave them
Mm.
all the information. And understandably, not much, there wasn't much traction because it was just an overload of information. So I then put together like a summer, it was called Strong Girls Summer. So it was like an
Oh,
online
lovely.
kind of hack that they used over the summer. And I'd been making some little like at-home workout videos for them anyway. So I just kind of put them together with some like information for them to then go away and read and use over the summer. And that was really beneficial because it just kind of like laid the foundation. And I had about 30 girls sign up for it, staff and student athletes. And
Brilliant.
then came back to school around, what time did we go back? It was around like August, September time. And then that's when I put together the Female Athlete Development Program. So
Yeah.
that is a weekly session where the girls and I get together. We have like 10, 15 minutes of like just little nuggets of information at the beginning, and then we do like a 45-minute to 60-minute strength training session. And that has really been the best way to get the information to the students because it's just little like nuggets of information. And one of the girls that was on the conference, Eleanor, she like nailed it. She was like, Miss Till just started like drip feeding information to us. Like, like little droplets, like breadcrumbs of information, and then they were like,
Yeah.
oh, this is, it's not too much information, and then they bought into it that way, and that was I think the best way of getting it out to the athletes. And then the other piece of it is obviously like I want the girls to understand what's going on, but I don't want to be the only voice who's delivering this to. And I do have a bit of a reputation at school being the period woman, but I'm like, it can't be vocalizing this. And so I did a couple of training sessions for staff, just like half an hour. We call them learning bites, like half an hour Zoom sessions after school. And I was really impressed with how many of the male coaches came along to sessions. And so then it was like, we're getting this from both sides now. The students are understanding it and their coaches are. And that's what it's about, really, is getting those two pieces in the middle and have those conversations.
Yeah, brilliant. And like, I know what you mean about the information overload. Like when you start learning it, you're like, oh my God, everyone needs to know all of this. And like, what? Let's just get on a session and I'll tell you everything. And everyone's like, yeah, okay, but like, firstly, whoa, and secondly, how do I apply that? You know what I mean? Because it's kind of a little bit of trial and error. And I think I love that approach of just like little bits every now and again, just like drip feeding it in, as you say, because it normalizes it just by repetition. So the more often that you're talking about it, the more comfortable they're going to become like listening to it and being involved in those conversations. Even if they're not actively involved, they're hearing you have that conversation with someone who is comfortable being actively involved. And I think that's great, because like kids are hard. Like I did a few talks in schools as well, and like they just stand there and they're like rabbits, like they don't say anything, and you're like, oh my God, give me something. And then and you'll have that one girl who's in the back being like, not nodding like encouragement, like you're totally engaged, and you're like, yeah, okay, I was going to talk to you. But then you hear them say stuff after it, chatting to themselves, and you're like, okay, they actually picked up something there, So it's definitely a tougher audience.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened with like the female athlete team. Like, so I have like, the girls that led the conference with me, they've been coming for weeks and months, and so I'd like start off every session and be like, show them this clip of like something like a really empowering video, or talk to them about something I'd learned that week, and they'd be like really excited about it, and they'd be like just sat there like, yeah, and they'd be like, any questions, thinking they'd be like ignite some passion, and they're like, no. Oh, good.
Yeah, all good.
Okay. And then when we came to do the conference, they were like absolutely nailing it. It was when we did a podcast before the conference, and I hadn't prepped them. I just picked the sort of questions that they're going to ask you, and they just reeled off everything we've been speaking about for the last couple of months, and was so confident and like articulate. And every time I wasn't speaking, I had to like pull myself together, because I was literally like so proud. I was like crying, and then they'd come like, okay, yeah, and then I'd have to speak about it, because it's just the way they are. And I think like everything being on Zoom now as well, it's so much harder for them to, you don't pick up on their body language as well, and it's so much more challenging for them to be open and honest about the information that they're getting. So yeah, it was lovely, like thinking, but seeing it all retrospectively and being like, oh, you have been listening, like you are,
yeah. I guess like that kind of leads in nicely into the female athlete development program, but the conference as well. So like, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like explain what it is, what the thinking was behind it, kind of how it grew, and like, if you've got any plans for the future with it as well.
Yeah, so the club, the program I thought up like over the summer. I was like, right, this is my thing. This is what I want to push forward with. Obviously, I work in a school, and yes, I want I want the adult population to understand, but like grassroots, like that, like I want them to get this understanding now, so that they're not going through some of the things that we went through, like in our 20s and in our 30s. So I was like, right, let's get the program up and running. And then the conference actually wasn't my idea. It was our assistant superintendent. I went in and had a meeting with him and our athletics director, and was all guns blazing, like, we need to do more about athlete development. I've been talking to you about this for months and months, and I want to have a meeting with parents, and da-da-da. And he turned around and was like, why don't you just do a conference? And then you can invite everyone. And I was like, yeah, that's a really good idea. I'm going to do that. And then, idea came, I went to the girls and was like, let's do this together. And they were like, yeah, cool, let's do it. And then it really snowballed. Like I spoke to some,
Mm.
initially it was just supposed to be an ISM thing. And then it got put out to some of the other schools that we work with in Southeast Asia. Then it got sent on to a group of athletics directors called the Globetrotting ADs, and then they sent it out. And we had people from all over attend the conference, which was
Amazing.
like, it was really incredible. And yeah, and it was a real proud moment for me. I was like, wow, like you put this together, and not just like I delivered some of the information, but the girls came onto the platform and they spoke. The fact that I have the connection with you and you came and spoke, like Kat was there. I had some other members of staff came. It was such a beautiful afternoon where we just had all these like really knowledgeable women coming together, and an audience of like nearly 200 people just sitting like listening to what we have to say and being really excited about it. So it was a really special afternoon. And
It was cool.
stuff that's kind of like come off of it, obviously. I'm hoping that me and you are going to be able to work together on some stuff in the future, and there's been a couple of connected like teachers from other schools that are like, I'd love to do some stuff together. And yeah, this summer the plan is to sit and really like put some concrete plans like down and be like, right, where is this going to go? There's a few little mini projects. Kat and I are looking at doing an online course together, so she'll kind of put the nutrition side together, I'll do the training and physiology side. So that's one of our little summer projects. So that's a bit of a watch this space.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and I guess just like you just never know. I think there's definitely a direction I wanted to go in, and I want to focus on student athletes for sure, and working in schools and with like youth clubs. But yeah, it's just about being open to it going in a bit more of a fluid direction, I guess, for the first year or so, and just seeing how it rolls out.
Yeah, see what kind of resonates. But no, I think firstly, obviously the Instagram and social media has loads of downsides, but what's great about it is it kind of does all of this. Like we got I think you messaged me, I can't remember what it was about, but you sent me a message one day and then we just started chatting, and I was like, I remember going in to Craig, my boyfriend, being like, oh my god, I've just been chatting to this PE teacher, she's English but she coaches out in Manila, and we've just been having the chats about all things periods, and she's amazing. And and he's like, that's great. But it was just so cool to...
Sorry.
No, I was just saying it's so cool just to be able to connect, you know what I mean, kind of find people who are doing something similar or kind of share the same sort of interest, and or trying to, especially for the younger generations as well, and kind of what that looks like, and but no, it's cool.
Yeah, and I just think because I was still so much in the learning stages, the beginning stage of the learning, it was just really like anyone who wants to talk about it, I get so excited about it as well, and still my friends do laugh, whenever we'll be out for dinner or anything, I'll manage to somehow get us to talk about menstrual cycles and the power of the period, and they're like, all right, factoid. You just head. But because and I definitely think it's now becoming a conversation that a lot more people are having, and people are a lot more comfortable discussing it, and it's not just within my group of friends and within my school, it is a lot more of a more comfortable topic of conversation. But I do just think in general there's a lot more stuff going out on social media, and Nike have now started discussing their app. Jessica Ennis is also has something to do with it with her online training app, and it's really exciting, and I'm just really pleased that it is getting out there, and it's just going to change. Honestly, it sounds, that I get, and I know that I do get really excited about it, but it does completely change your life. Not just in training, you just have such a better understanding of your body and appreciation of it. Those days feeling a little bit and down, or not even down, just a bit flat, you're all right, cool, my body needs to chill out, and then knowing that you get you're it doesn't take a week's time or a few days time, I know I'm going to be on my game again, and so time.
No, it's cool. I literally just posted this morning about that as well, just being here's all the reasons why tracking is great. And like you can choose how deep you want to go into it. You know what I mean? You could literally like, especially, you know, I'm now self-employed. So if you're self-employed, like you can literally match your work, your life, your social life, your training, like everything to kind of how you're feeling. But you know, not everyone's going to have that flexibility within their schedule, but there's still things that you can do to adapt that. But even as you said, just from like that self-compassion point of view, being like, oh, okay, like it's just my hormones and I know what I need to do to kind of look after myself a bit better during that stage. And, you know, if I am competing and I'm kind of, or, you know, I don't have a big training session or a training day, like, you know, let's take that step back and use it as that deload week and kind of just let your body rest and then hit it hard when you're feeling good again. And like, it just makes such a difference to like your mood, your energy, your training, like you enjoy it more. Well, I know I enjoyed it more anyway, for sure, like, because it doesn't feel like a drag. You know, you've got to push yourself through those days where you might mentally be feeling a little bit low, but that's different to physiologically feeling tired and fatigued and, you know, not well rested or there's something going on with your hormones. So no, I think it's great. And I know we've had this conversation, but like it is that sort of stuff that you do wish someone told you when you're 16, 18, you know, just being like, hey, FYI, this is actually what's going on. You're not going crazy. You're not like you're not getting fat. Like, you know, it's just your body's changing and, you know, you're gonna have a bit of a period where maybe like you might feel a little bit gangly or, you know, you might not be able to run as kind of efficiently as you were before, but like you'll get that groove back, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's brilliant to be able to bring it to kids and stuff.
Yeah, that just that understanding and appreciating your body, like the reason why it becomes a little bit harder, you know, you go through puberty, and it's like that. It's okay that it feels a little bit like that because you know once if you take care of your body during those years, and train properly, and you know
Mm,
that you have you know you're strengthening those muscles that need to be strengthened to help prevent injury and to help you to move and run better, then you know you're going to be an even stronger, better, more like efficient athlete later on. And I think it's
yeah.
just this, like my own experience. Like I wanted to be one of the lads since like day dot. Like I was a bit of a
Mm,
tomboy. Like I'd always, you know, me and my sister growing up, I'd go and play with like my boy cousins, and she'd be like upstairs like with my like girl cousins. Like I wanted to be with the
yeah, yeah.
boys school, obviously like playing sport, and then you get to that time when they start getting better than you, and I just wanted to like be
Mm,
myself and keep up with them the whole time. And even you know until like the last couple of years, like I got into CrossFit about 3 or 4 years ago, and obviously like it's quite a competitive environment when you're training,
yeah.
and you know I would take it as a real personal achievement if I managed to beat one of the males in the gym. And I'm not
I'm
saying
the
that
exact same. I'm so bad. I try and match the lads on like the rowers, and I'm like they
yeah,
weigh so much more than me, and they're bigger than me. Like they're gonna pull more, and I'm like yeah, but like just see if you can pull heavier. Just like Sinead,
yeah,
stop.
it's innate in me. And I'm not going to lie, like I still, if I manage to do something better than one of the boys, like you know, obviously still love it, but I appreciating, you know, this whole idea of we can do anything that the boys can do, and we just are going to get there a different way. Like we're going
Yeah,
to get to the same point. We're going to eat a little bit differently. We're going to train differently. And, you know, our journey might be a little bit like this, and theirs is going to be like that, but you know we still get to the same place. We just got to go a different road, and
exactly.
understanding that but yeah
Yeah, and
that
I
just
think
yeah
as well, like one of the things, and I know you talked about it in the conference as well, and you know it's definitely something that I feel quite strongly about, and but yes, is directly and indirectly linked to the kind of menstrual cycle awareness, but is kind of fueling and making sure that kind of athletes are kind of eating enough and, you know, relative energy deficiency in sport, or, you know, it's also called the female athlete triad. And I know that was something that you talked about in the conference. So like for you, how did you kind of approach that with the girls and kind of how were they receptive to it or kind of, you know, how I know it's a funny topic where some of it's slightly out of scope as well, and you've got to kind of be careful with that I guess that scope and kind of where that line is. But you know, how have you incorporated that if you have incorporated it into what you're doing with them every week?
yeah absolutely. I was a little bit dubious about whether or not I should put that session in, and then I was like
Mm,
no, if this does be understood, because I think some people look at that information and, you know, what, like relative energy deficiency and the female athlete triad, and they're like, oh, but that's for like elite athletes, and that happens to elite. And yes, it is maybe more typical in like elite athletes, male and female, but it actually can happen to like general population and, you know, recreational athletes. I'm sure back before I kind of started this journey, I knew like I was like had at least like early stages of it where my menstrual cycle was like very intermittent, and, you know, like levels of fatigue, and just, yeah, like when I look back at pictures of myself from that time, and I was just like running all the time, I'm like, oh gosh, like you don't realize it when you're in that time, but you're like go and eat some food, and like, you know, put weight on, and like look after yourself a little bit more. And so I wanted them to understand that, like, you know, this is something that could happen if you really, really push yourself. But also I kind of tied it in with like body image and this whole concept of, you know, if you look a certain way as an athlete, like you look like that because it's going to help you perform better. And there's a really, I can't remember who it is that's produced it now, but there's a video that I want to show at the conference, but I couldn't. It's a group of athletes who are all university level athletes, and they're talking about how they really are affected by body image. And, you know, these are like super lean, like, you know, really athletic looking, like amazing physique, but they're still getting judged on what they look like, and they still think that what they look like is not, you know, there's a line in it where it said this strong athletic body that is like help me on the court is not the body that I'm being told I should have by social media. And so really from that point of view and that angle, to just encourage them to like not feel guilty when you're eating food.
Yeah,
I think
because even on that, oh, go on, sorry, talk to me.
No, just to say, like, I think this is another like positive thing about you know, getting into cycle tracking is that I just don't feel guilty about eating anymore. Like, I'm like, I know I need this food, and the more I eat, the harder I'm going to be able to train, and like, you know, that's going to help my aesthetics. Actually, it's going to help me move better, feel better, and then the aesthetics just kind of like fit into place afterwards. Whereas, like, yeah, I'm not joking. I think from the age of like, I'd say 26, maybe a bit older, maybe like 28 until I was 35. Like, I just constantly felt a sense of guilt when I was eating or not eating food, and it's difficult way to live your life.
Absolutely, and it takes up so much energy as well. And like that's the thing as well. Like, you know, when you start fueling yourself, like you feel better, you have more energy, you're less cranky, like you actually do better, you get injured less, you develop muscle. And I think that's one of the things as well where, like, you know, obviously there's this kind of new aesthetic where, like, you know, strong is the new skinny and all that kind of stuff. And it's positive in one way insofar as, I guess, it's promoting a kind of what on the surface looks like a more kind of healthier lifestyle. But on the flip side, Instagram in particular, but just in general, like, you know, we look at these like elite athletes that literally their job is to do this, and they're dialing down for their competition to be at the exact same body weight that they need to be. And like often you don't see them like, you know, the off season, and where they're trying to put on weight or they're trying to do this. And like most people aren't sitting at like 16% body fat because it's really bloody hard, and also it's not really optimal from a healthy menstrual cycle point of view. So like unless you're an athlete and you need to lose that weight for a competition that you're in, and it's also, you know, some sports are more weight specific than others, or if you're a physique athlete, you don't need to be that lean. And even for them, they're only lean for a short period of the year. Like so I think that's a big thing as well, is like people just realizing that like it's normal and it's healthy to have a bit of body fat on you, and that can be different amount for different people and for different sports and, you know, different physiques. But yeah, it's definitely challenging. Like it was hard when we were growing up. I don't envy the youth, the younger generations looking on social media now. Like I'm like mute. You know what I mean? Like you gotta protect yourself. So I'd say it's tough for kids growing up now.
Yeah, that's one of the things I said to the said to the athletes, like the FAD team. I'm like, you got to curate your social media. Like I have to, you know, I have my Cassandra Louise one, which is, you know, I I go through that quite regularly, and I'm like, you know, there's a lot of like training stuff on there, and it's like feeding me information. I'm like, yeah, I believe that, and I know that that's backed by, you know, research that's based on my physiology. Then I'm like, yeah, great. But then the moment that you see somebody posting something, and I'm like, that's not serving me, then I'm like, unfollow.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then, you know, like my social media account is like memes and, you know, my mates, so that I can like see what they're doing whilst they're there. And it's like, if you're looking at something and it doesn't make you feel good, then why would you have it on your slide? Why would you let that into your brain? Just get rid of it. And yeah, there's no way. I wouldn't go back and be, I say this to my kids all the time, I'm like, I would not go back and be your age again for like all the money in the world. Like,
Yeah,
it's
I
bad
know.
enough around.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
It's so true. And like if you, so say for example, there's like a PE teacher or a teacher who's kind of listening to this and they're kind of curious to like find out more how to approach it, like what would you be recommending to them to kind of, you know, get something like this implemented in their school or kind of educate themselves a bit more about it?
I mean, the number one, watch the Stacey Sims TED Talk. Number two, read the book, just to give you that like overview and understand it. I think start the journey yourself first, like male or female coach, and understand what's going on, and then just start having conversations with other people. I think that's an understanding. Different, you know, my experience during my menstrual cycle was very different to what yours will be, and it's just about just understanding that even though there is this, you know, there's not a hard and fast set of rules. And then I actually love your analogy of like big rocks before the small sands, and just look, you know, fueling your performance is got to be one of the first ones. Like track your cycle and fuel your performance. Right? Understand that things going up and down, and just start listening to your body for the first, like, you know, few months, and then make sure you've got adequate food in your body. And then that's kind of like the first step, isn't it? To just, then they start understanding their body and like, you know, appreciating it a little bit more. And then I think you just go with like, get it, like the big thing is getting your athletes and coaches to meet in the middle. Like I always find like, somebody asked me this at the conference, and it's always like male coaches always ask it. And I've asked it myself a million times. You've got 30 athletes in front of you. What do you do? How do you implement this? And it's that having that conversation, get them to understand it, you understand it, and just build that conversation between them. And I know that they're, and when there was somebody that asked this, but he asked me at the conference, and then I know he asked you it in the breakout room afterwards, and I'm like, it's the same answer, like it's building that conversation.
Absolutely.
And actually, I was speaking to coaches the other day. He's our touch rugby coach. He's been like a massive advocate for the program like since the beginning, and he was talking about getting the girls. Just had a tickly cough.
That's all right. The worst that happens. That happened to me in a class the other day. I was like, sorry.
It's like the worst time ever to have a cough.
I know, yeah. You're like, and my closing statement. All right.
Yeah, and getting to be like the coaches, sorry, the captains.
Oh no.
Oh gosh.
We'll put it down to being emotional.
Yeah, I just love talking about parents.
Yeah. Like empowering the youth.
Okay. It's getting our girls who are the captains to talk to their teams about this, so it doesn't have to be a conversation with the coach.
Yeah, great idea.
That conversation between them.
Yeah. No, because it is hard, and like that comes up a lot when I'm working with teams as well. They're like, how do we approach this? You know, and you're kind of like, yeah, some people are going to feel uncomfortable about it, but others are going to feel quite comfortable about it. So like trying to identify those points of contact that are kind of going to lead out that conversation. And, you know, if that's the captains that are then reporting in, or if it's maybe if you have a kind of person on the staff or on the team, with the, say, the support team, if you've got kind of more than one teacher or more than one coach and stuff like that, who is comfortable having those conversations, trying to build that out. Because it's hard. It's going to take a while to change the fact that it's historically not a conversation that a lot of male coaches would have with their female athletes. And I think the fact that you were even bringing up the topic of males is like what I would add to it as well. It's like if you're not female or you don't have a female physiology, I should say, you're not excluded from the conversation. Like you're actually encouraged to get involved because like the more you understand, the more then everyone understands. And if it's all just, like I just love if they're like, hey, how'd you sleep? What phase of your cycle are you on? And that's just a normal conversation any coach has with any of their female athletes or female clients. And the female athlete or client is as comfortable responding that as if they're like, oh yeah, I got 7 hours sleep, or oh actually yeah, my cycle hasn't been great, I've been having really bad PMS, or it's actually got a bit irregular. That you then can just have that conversation and be like, okay, well, what's going on, or how do we adapt to that and stuff. So no, I think it's a great kind of recommendation if there's any like male PE teachers out there or teachers, or and kind of if they're curious and want to learn more about this. It's not like a closed club that you can't get involved in and learn about.
Yeah, and I've said, I've actually had a conversation with one of my male coaches who challenged me on something I wrote on social media once that was, you don't have to have a period to understand periods. And he was like, I disagree. Like, no, I'm not saying you have to understand what it's like to physically have a menstrual bleed, but what you can understand is how my body feels. Like, there's things that happen to a man that I can't physically understand it, but I know that, I understand what's happening to them. And, and I said, like, we've had to, like, that's those with female physiology, all the information we've been given in, like, since has been based on men. So we understand it. So, like, it's now your turn to understand the other side of the story.
Absolutely. And as well, like, it seems complicated at the start, but it's actually not. Like, it's really just applying the basics of periodized training to someone's individual rhythm and cycle. And yes, that's a little bit more complicated when you're looking at it from a team scenario, but there's ways that you can balance that out just the way, or ways that you can kind of, I guess, manage that just the way you'd manage it if someone comes in with an injury, or someone comes in and they haven't slept well, or they're underfueling. You just adapt based on that, and that individual is empowered by knowing that actually if they haven't slept well or they haven't fueled right, that really they should be taking a deload, or whatever that might be. If they're in phase 4 or they struggle the first few days of bleeding, you are taking a deload, and that is totally fine, and it's not going to impact. And the other thing, I know I've had conversations, and I thought you might find this interesting as well, is like testing. So a lot of teams tend to test in 4-week cycles, and they're just like, because it's easy. But actually you could have a situation where, and this is the case for a couple of teams that I would have worked with, where their testing is always going to be falling for some people on phase 4. And, you can still perform and you can still do well, but psychologically that's going to have an impact on those athletes, because they're worried, or they know that they don't feel great, and they're trying to manage that. So like simple things like changing it to 5 weeks or 6 weeks, or, breaking that up a little bit, or like having access to toilets near the pitches, especially now with COVID. Like, you can't be down at a workshop or kind of a day-long event and not have access to the bathroom. If you're, even things like toxic shock syndrome, but like, more kind of, I guess, personal things like someone who's having a heavy bleed and is going to flood, and like just psychologically, that's going to have a massive impact. So there's things like that are easy to fix that will make a huge difference,
Yeah, I think it's like, so much the conversations we're having now is about people being heard and being seen. Just see us and understand that there's other things that we need. Like, one of the nicest conversations I heard at a conference, the student athletes was answering a question from a coach about how do you broach the conversations about being on your period, or just making athletes their period feel more comfortable. And she was like, I wish people had more of a conversation with me about it, and like understanding that there's other options other than using sanitary pads that are actually maybe be useful or easier to use when you are playing sport. And she talked about like our girls all wear like the little spandex shorts, and so do our volleyball girls, and you're like, that's not what your period.
Or like white shorts. People wearing white shorts, you're just like, no. Like, even as an adult wearing white shorts, I'm like, I don't know how to do it. Like, I'd never.
So much stuff out there that wasn't available when we were younger, like the period pad. I was like, I wish that they were available when we were growing up. Like, they'd be so
Yeah,
much easier. Like, some companies offer ones that are like special sports shorts versions, and
yeah,
just having, if we have more of those conversations about it and normalize it, then you know, they will respond and feel empowered to talk about it, because, you know, it's
absolutely.
evident with the worked with, like,
Yeah,
they said to them, and they even said, they were like, gosh, I can't believe that we went on a podcast and we're talking about periods. And I was like, I know, it's super cool, isn't it?
yeah,
But they just, like, that, I was like, yeah, I didn't think that was going to happen a year ago either.
yeah. No, it's very cool. But look, I love that you're doing what you're doing with the girls in your school, and like, you know, the female athlete program sounds brilliant. And I was honestly honored to be asked to come on and talk about, which is great. I was like, woo, this is so empowering. And it was great to see so many coaches, male, female, teachers, students, parents, like everyone kind of get involved. Like it was brilliant asking the questions and everything. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you're going to do then online, and between yourself and Kat as well. It's a great team, so it'll be cool to see what's coming there. But yeah. So if anyone's interested, follow Cassandra. Her account is fantastic, and yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's yeah, it's been definitely like highlight this journey, like connecting with you, and just I, you know, I've learned so much from you over this past like couple of years, just like going to some of the webinars that you've led and the content you've put on Instagram as well. So yeah, just thank you for that, and
No problem.
what
Yeah,
some more collaborations in the future.
yeah, absolutely. I'm like, watch the space. No, but look, it was. Thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate you giving up your Friday evening as well over there with the time difference. So you're a star, and sure, I'll be talking to you later. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
later.